Today we're going to get into the 7 takeaways from number 7 Oklahoma's skulldragging of Florida Atlantic, including why Mike Stoops is still running a 3-4 and I can prove it. And all that's coming up after the bumper.
What do you mean you don't subscribe to my son's YouTube channel?
Mama, no!
Just snap the damn ball, RJ.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always OU related, college football related, sports related. We have a good time. So today we're going to get into the 7 takeaways from Oklahoma's skulldragging of Florida Atlantic. But first, let's start with some news and notes from around college football, starting with there might not be a more overrated head coach in all of football than Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh, my goodness, can't get a W in a big game. Lost to Notre Dame 24-17 on a dramatic fumble from Shea Patterson to basically seal it for the Fighting Irish. I don't even like Notre Dame. Most folks don't like Notre Dame. Rudy was offsides. But even I wanted to see Jim Harbaugh get a W in a big game against a program that matters. Still waiting on that to happen. Oklahoma's next opponent, UCLA, took that L against Cincinnati, 26-17. Starting quarterback and Michigan transfer, Wilton Spate was knocked out of the game. But hey, true freshman, dual threat, 4-star quarterback Dorian Thompson-Robinson came into the game, and you know what he did? 4.7 yards per completion. Look, he's a handsome kid, but I'm beginning to think that UCLA and Florida Atlantic would have been a better game, and UCLA is going to come to Norman and get drug. Good luck to you, Chip Kelly. What am I talking about? Bad luck to you. I hope y'all get stomped on like Florida Atlantic did. Auburn beat Washington 21-16, ensuring that I don't have to hear Jake Browning's name for the Heisman for the foreseeable future. Oklahoma State beat Missouri State 58-17, but the story out of Stillwater is, when is Taylor Cornelius going to do us all a favor and just go full bald? TCU's audition for the SWAC went well. They stomped Southern 55-17. Sean Robinson had 5 TDs, but Texas Christian's application to join the SWAC was reportedly pulled after Gary Patterson tried to use lit in polite conversation. So TCU remains the second best team in the Big 12 by default. Texas Tech got run by Ole Miss 47-27. In related news, I hear Cliff Kingsbury's house is going to be up for sale in December. So I was wrong to pick against West Virginia. They destroyed Tennessee 40-14. I have gone from not believing in Will Grier at all to going, alright, yeah, he's going to be in the Heisman conversation, and for good reason. He was 25 of 34 for 429 yards with 5 TDs. I would not be surprised to find out that Will Grier jumped to the front of the Heisman Trophy conversation and shut me up at least for this week. Daniel Boone's angry cousin up north peeled Rocky Top's cap. Good God, Texas. Number 23, Texas, lost to Maryland for a consecutive year. This time the score was 34-29, where Magic City Tom Herman tried to do his best used car salesman pitch and said that this loss wasn't a big deal. Longhorn fans, why don't you run this dude out on the rail? You know, on a second thought, sign him to a lifetime contract. That's what y'all need down there in Austin, I'm sure of it. Kansas State barely beat South Dakota 27-24, and Kansas managed to lose to Nichols. Look, bring back the Big 8. Just lop off both Kansas teams and we lose nothing. Seriously, the strength of the conference just gets better. You cannot prove that Kansas State and Kansas make the Big 12 better. And I'd be remiss if I did not mention that a ranked number 10 Penn State team needed overtime to beat Appalachian State. My goodness, Happy Valley nearly became Appy Valley. Big 10, here's an idea. Kick Maryland out at Appalachian State. You cannot do any worse. It's impossible. Speaking of Maryland again, I gotta harp on this just a little bit. Look, Tom Herman was going up against a team that he was favored to beat by 2 touchdowns that did not have a head coach and still managed to lose by 5 points. I mean, I'm having fun watching the Texas dumpster fire, but at some point, Longhorn fans are just going to have to get used to the idea of going 7-5 and that just being life. Now let's get into the 7 takeaways from Oklahoma's skulldragging of Florida Atlantic. And the first one is, the freshmen can play. We put a lot of stock into this 2018 class, a top 10 recruiting class, particularly on the defensive side of the ball with the late additions of 5-star defensive back Brendan Bookie Radley Hiles, 4-star linebacker Deshaun White, 4-star defensive end Ronnie Perkins, and others. And all three of those guys, plus a lot of their classmates, showed up to play against Florida Atlantic. Now, I also understand that there's a bunch of folks that want to be like, yo, RJ, pump your brakes. Florida Atlantic plays in Conference USA. They were never that good. They ain't that good. Look here, man. I know what you know, which is that all of us were pumping up Florida Atlantic, myself included, because we were right to do so. They won 11 games last year, and I don't care who you played against, all right? Winning 11 games in Division I football ain't nothing to sneeze at, and Devin Singletary is still one of the best running backs in college football. And I can say that because he had more yards on the ground than Bryce Love, which is the guy a lot of people believe is the best running back in college football, even though Rodney Anderson had 5 carries for 100 yards, but I'll get into that later. Point is, Deshaun White, Bookie, Perk, Nick Bonito, TJ Pledger, Miguel Edwards, all those guys showed up to play. All of those guys got significant playing time, and we know that Oklahoma is only going to be as good as its depth chart, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, because injuries are going to happen, as we know, with Addison Gums, Jalen Redmond, Michael Thompson, Starlin Baldwin. I could go on, and you need to be good from top to bottom if you want to do what Oklahoma wants to do, which is compete for a national championship this year. Second thing that we can take away is Kerry Cooks has turned the defensive backfield around. The recruiting that he has done, particularly at corner and safety, has been outstanding, and it's because he's sticking to his philosophy of not recruiting a corner or a safety or a free safety or a strong safety. He recruits defensive backs. He recruits guys that can easily move from corner to safety. See Justin Broyles, see Jordan Parker. And then you had a guy like Robert Barnes who got the only interception of the game. Bookie looked the part playing the nickelback safety position, flying around, making tackles. Parnell Motley led the team in tackles. Trey Brown was second behind him. So your corners were your leading tacklers in a game where the defense pitched a shutout in the first half. Kerry Cooks knows how to get it done on the recruiting end, and now it seems his efforts are paying dividends. The third takeaway is OU is deeper at tight end than we thought. I mean, you'd be Lee Morris's parents if you were thinking that Lee Morris is going to have the kind of day that he had. And I don't just mean his receiving touchdown. I'm talking about the blocked punt. And I got to believe that has something to do with not just Shane Beamer's input on the special teams, but Shane Beamer coaches the H-backs and tight ends, meaning he knows more about Lee Morris than any other position coach does to date. So putting him in position to make plays, catching the ball, as well as blocking punts, just highlights what kind of athletes are out there at tight end. I know we're going to see more of Grant Calcaterra as the season progresses, but it is nice to know that the battle at tight end might be just as good as the battle was at quarterback for who was going to be QB1. Fourth thing we can take away is OU wants to run the ball and can run the ball anytime it wants. Sooners have 5 running backs and a quarterback who can gash you and take it to the house anytime. All 5 OU running backs averaged 5.4 yards per carry or better. We know that Rodney Anderson had 5 carries for 100 yards with 2 TDs. But we also need to add that Trey Sermon had 9 carries for 69 yards. That's 7.7 yards per carry. Kennedy Brooks had 4 carries for 51 yards. That's over 12 yards per carry. Marcelius Sutton had 4 carries for 38 yards. That's 9.5 yards per carry. And of course, true freshman TJ Pledger had 7 carries for 38 yards for 5.4 yards per carry. And then you got Kyler Murray back there able to do his magician thing. My goodness, that scramble was one of the best plays, if not the most athletic play that we saw all day. Kind of makes you feel fortunate to know that you're watching Kyler Murray play his last season of football ever. And I'll take that one to the bank. I don't see Kyler Murray coming back. The more y'all say it, the more I believe that he's going to be an Oakland A in 2019. And to piggyback on an earlier comment, Rodney Anderson got to be a favorite for Heisman at this point. Look, he's averaging 20 yards per carry, but he only got 5 carries. If he was able to play the entire game, he would have put up Will Grier type numbers at the running back position. But to date, I think the folks that you want to have at the ceremony are going to be Will Grier, Mackenzie Milton, who ain't going to win the Heisman because who's the last non-power conference player to win the Heisman Trophy? Rodney Anderson, and perhaps Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama. And I know I'm missing some folks, but those are the 4 off the top of my head. We can talk about more in the comments below. The next thing you can take away from Oklahoma's destruction of Florida Atlantic is Drake Stoops is going to contribute in 2018. And probably contribute in a big way. He earned his way onto the field as a preferred walk-on, spurning scholarship offers from Iowa, Memphis, Western Kentucky, and others. Had a huge crackback play and was one of of 9 receivers to make a catch and one of 6 to have 2 or more. The receiving core as a whole averaged 17.6 yards per catch. Hollywood Brown led them all, 6 catches for 133 yards, including that beautiful 65-yard bomb from Kyler Murray. We all knew that Oklahoma was going to be okay at receiver, but now we know that Oklahoma's okay at receiver. Yes, CeeDee Lamb could have had more targets, but I'm not worried about it. Oklahoma will be a running team in 2018. And the last thing that we could take away from OU's curb stomping of Florida Atlantic is Mike Stoops' defense looked pretty good. Now again, Florida Atlantic ain't Georgia. For that matter, they ain't Iowa State or Baylor. But what Mike Stoops put out looked better than what he put out last year, and that's what we're asking for. We're asking for Mike Stoops' defense to close the gap with the offense so that the defense is good enough to win national championships and not just make it to the college football playoff, because that is the last step in the process. OU has made it to the college football playoffs. We basically have a room in the foursome already made up for us. It's about whether or not the defense can get us out of the semifinal and into the final where Oklahoma can win a national championship. And I think the defense that Mike Stoops is most likely to put out, the scheme that he wants to run, is a 3-4. And I know this because that's what he started against Florida Atlantic. According to the participation report provided by the University of Oklahoma's athletic department, Mike Stoops started 3 defensive linemen, 4 linebackers, and 4 defensive backs. The difference is, where we're used to seeing a strong safety, he puts a nickel back. Now, for my purposes, the nickel back and the strong safety are interchangeable in Mike Stoops' defense, because you still just have 4 defensive backs and you're not really running a 4-2-5. You're essentially saying that your outside linebackers are hybrids of 2 different positions, albeit very different positions. You're saying that the jack linebacker is both a defensive end and a linebacker, and you're saying that the Sam linebacker is both a linebacker and a defensive back. The only other team that I can think that runs that kind of a scheme or anything similar to it is Alabama. But Alabama has safety prospects at what most people call outside linebacker positions. One in particular, the Ryan Jones position, is the star position at Alabama. That guy has to be able to do a lot of different things, just like the jack linebacker position has to do a lot of different things. You're putting a lot on the plate of those outside linebackers and Bookie, who you're asking to line up in the slot, and also from time to time be responsible for not letting anybody get over the top. But the defense that he put out, Parnell Motley and Trey Norwood at corner, Khalil Houghton at free safety with Bookie at safety, Kenneth Murray at the mic, Curtis Bolton at the will, Mark Jackson at the jack, and Ryan Jones at the Sam, with Kenneth Mann and Amani Bledsoe at defensive end and Neville Gallimore in the middle. It worked. It looked good. Again, Florida Atlantic. We will see how this defense progresses over the course of the season, because again, Mike Stoops has put out defenses that were world beaters. They beat up Ohio State last year, beat up TCU as well, and have beaten up SEC teams in the past like Tennessee, Auburn, and Alabama. But it's not about one game during the season. It's about the entire season, particularly in the college football playoff semifinal game. So I want to see Mike Stoops' defense do it for an entire season. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.